Well, I'm sitting here today with Mike Verbic, who played with the band OROBOROS, which is where I became aware of him. When did that start? When did you join OROBOROS?
I believe it was 1991, I believe. I was recruited by none other than Jim Miller. I was sitting playing a guitar in Mayfield Music, and Jim came by and goes, "Hey, how you doing? You sound good." You know, he goes, "Why don't you try out for us? Why don't you try out for OROBOROS? We're looking for another guitar player." And I tried out, and they hired me, and the rest is history.
Who did you play? What was your musical background? What bands were you in before OROBOROS?
Well, actually, my background was in R&B and soul. I played with a band that I started in high school called the Chancellors. And we got a really tight unit. We were even offered to play at the Cleveland Agora. And a couple of the members were young, they were 17 years old, and their parents didn't want to let them play in a bar. So we had to turn the gig down. I didn't want to play it without them. I didn't want to get a substitute drummer, a substitute sax player.
Where was that band? What high school was that at?
Wycliffe High School.
Awesome.
And then from there, I toured around with a band called Bootleg, which was really a cool band. It was a lot of fun. We did a lot of covers. We did maybe one original or something or two, but we did a lot of rowdy stuff like the Stones and Deep Purple, and we would play these gigs, and the Hells Angels loved us. So the Hells Angels would come to our gigs. Hey, isn't that funny? Because the Hells Angels love the Dead. You know?
Right.
But, and so sometimes I would call up somebody to get a booking, and they say, "Well, we don't care for the clientele you're bringing in here." And I said, "I know what you mean, okay."
Now I've seen, as I've been taking pictures of these old scenes and selling them and making videos out of them, I've definitely seen the band Bootleg listed in venue ads. What joints were you guys playing?
We played, there was a place called Mr. Pete's that was in Eastlake. We played at a place called the Hungry Eye that was in Willoughby. The Hungry Eye's in San Francisco, but you know, they took that name.
Did they switch it to EYE though, or
yeah. And we played at the old Hires Lounge in Wycliffe, which was renamed the Lower Level, which was a trip place.
That was like the corner of Euclid and that little road in between the freeway and Lloyd, right?
Right next to the drive-in.
Yeah,
Theater.
Yeah. That's where our factory is. My family's business is right down 286 behind that old Ramada Inn. So
yeah, okay.
As a kid, we'd go up on the roof there and watch the drive-in. They show R-rated movies in there. We'd see titties from the factory roof in our youth. So, yeah, I know Wycliffe real well.
And then Bootleg, we evolved to a band called Coco. And Coco was a really top-notch band. It was a good band. Larry Koval, who manages Carlos Jones, was the keyboard player in Coco.
Oh, I never knew Larry could actually play. I thought he was just the business.
They would play and sing. He was an entertainer. We had a great group of musicians. The bass player, Dennis Wallington, lives out in San Francisco area. And he had a hit record with his cousin. When the disco era was going on, he had a disco fever kind of hit record. The drummer Johnny Rudman has a limo service in Cleveland.
Okay.
Jimmy Burns, who was the other guitar player, I don't know exactly what he's doing these days. Kind of lost touch with him. Sam Militello, who I'm still in touch with. He was in theater, an attorney in New York City. I've been out to his house. He's like a fantastic chef. He's got like 7 grills in his backyard, you know. So I'm still in touch with a lot of these guys, and Larry and I go back to, God, maybe first grade or something.
Oh, he's a Wycliffe kid.
Really old friends, you know. One of my oldest, dearest friends, you know.
What year did you guys graduate from from high school? Like, what were you playing the teen clubs in that band you were describing?
I was in class of '70. The Chancellors played at. There was a couple of places that were like bars, but they didn't serve any alcohol. But they were like really hip places. There was a place called the Inn Spot. Okay. That was at Golden Gate, or not Golden Gate Shopping Center, but the other shopping center. Eastgate, I think.
Was it part of the bowling alley, or?
Yeah, the bowling alley, the little putting, the swimming pool, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we played there. That was a hot spot. And then we also played at a place called the Lantern. It was the Lantern Tina Go-Go, which was at one time called Surfside. And I think it was on Route 6. Out in Willoughby Hills. Okay. But there was a lot of great bands that we used to go hear that we say we got to be good like those guys, and that was groups like the Sensations, the Charades. You know, some of these bands were phenomenal. Bands. Somebody to look up to. Buddy Maver. Yeah. That whole crowd.
So, did you go to were the Hullabaloos still around when you were old enough to start going to them, or?
I never played at the Hullabaloo, but I used to go to the Manor Hullabaloo to see bands. Okay. I'll play. I saw Bob Seger there.
Wow.
I saw MC5, which was so loud. I had cigarettes that I took the filters and stuck in my ears. It was so loud. I used to go see the James Gang there all the time. It was a great place, the Manor Hullabaloo, and Otto Newber owned that. And Otto, later on, when we were in Bootleg, we played at Otto's clubs. He had Otto's site and Otto's back room in the flats.
Oh, I never knew that connection.
So we dealt with Otto and John Tevis. These are people that were booking us and trying to help us get ahead.
When you talked about seeing the James Gang, did you see the Glenn version or the Joe version or both?
I never got to see the Glenn version, but my cousin in Chicago says there's this great guitar player where you live named Glenn Schwartz. My cousin in Chicago was friends with Glenn. Wow. Pretty tight with him. And he said, you got to go see him play. So I knew he played with the James Gang. I went out to see the James Gang, and there's Joe Walsh from the Measles is playing with them. Right. And he just blew me away. So, I just broken up with the Chancellors. We decided, we break up. And this is an amicable breakup. But I saw Joe Walsh play a couple of times, and then I went out and I saw a glass harp with Phil Kiegi play, and I quit playing my guitar for a couple of years. I said, I can't compete with these guys. They're magical. They're amazing. So it's kind of funny. I got back into it, listening to artists like David Bowie that did tasteful stuff on the guitar. It wasn't that complicated. Right. Mountain, just love the style, the fingering and things that they were doing. Right. Those kind of bands. I realized that you don't have to be a phenomenal. You can be a good guitar player and get by.
Now, did Coco have original material or covers?
Yeah, we did. We did originals and covers. And a funny story about Coco was that we were playing in The Mistake. Sure. And one of our early gigs was at this bar called the Cock and Bull on 36th and Payne. And this was a great bar. Oh my God, people would go crazy. Now, you gotta imagine this. We bought a PA from Midwest Sound Exchange. This PA and the truck to haul it in cost $25,000.
My goodness.
In 1975.
My goodness.
This PA was so magical, so huge, and sounded so great that when the Agora started doing Monday nights out, they used our PA at first. Because it was just, we had monitors, side fills, everything. And it could be so loud, I remember Michael Stanley and a couple of his band members came, they were standing by the soundboard, and our sound man, Grant Barlow, who went on to bigger and better things and toured with Village People and Pat Benatar. He did Pat Benatar for a number of years. And Grant says, yeah, Michael Stanley was here with a couple other guys, and they were saying, these kids must be rich. Look at this PA system. They must have a lot of money. These must be rich kids from Shaker. We weren't. We got a guy that signed, co-signed a loan for us to get. So we had this monster PA system. I was saying, let's do the songs we need to do to play upstairs at the Agora. We'll make more money.
Right.
You know, we'll pay this off faster. And it was like, no, we don't want to sell out. We don't want to sell out. Well, it turns out after I left the band, that's what they did. A month later, they were like playing upstairs because it was a good band.
So you mean playing covers?
A lot of
Mixed
covers.
in, yeah.
Did some originals. They had some originals, but we did mostly covers.
So, but when you say that let's do the songs to be able to play upstairs, is that meaning play more covers or?
Well, we were doing oddball covers when we were playing downstairs. It was sick. We were doing Midnight Moses by Sensational Arcs Harvey Band.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing White Punks on Dope by the Tubes. We were just doing off-the-wall songs. We weren't doing the Lido Shuffle, you know, or Bob Seger tunes, you know, like Night Moves and that.
The songs for the masses.
That's what people wanted to hear upstairs. They wanted to hear dance songs. And we were doing crazy songs.
What was the difference in pay between upstairs and downstairs there?
Amazing, in the thousands. Back then, bands got paid a lot of money. You know,
When did it stop being a good gig money wise? Because I mean I remember it drying up. I would say early '90s.
When I was in OROBOROS, we were still getting paid good money. And we had a lot of expenses. You know, we had over 6,000 people on that mailing list that we sent the postcards out to, that whole schedule. You know, we had a van to keep up, you know, an equipment truck to keep up, roadies to pay.
Yeah.
You know, the roadie crews we had in the Soundmen we had were always integral to the success of OROBOROS. And they were great. We always had great people working with us. You know, so, Steve Fritch and Swampy, John Conde was the sound man for a while. Of course, Radish at first. You know, when I joined the band, Radish was the sound man, and so it was. They were integral to making everything work, and it spoiled me because I didn't have to do anything. I'd come to the gig. My guitars were set up on the stands, in tune, everything's set up. All I could do is plug in and check my tuning and start it up. You know, so it was you get spoiled like that. After that broke up and the OROBOROS thing, when I left that and I was Dream Circuit was the next band.
Right.
And I had to carry my own stuff and set up my own stuff. And I go, geez, I miss those roadies. Well, we played some great gigs in OROBOROS. I'll tell you, that was a hell of an experience. I had a lot of great memories of gigs. Of course, when I started, it was Mike Bradley was keyboards. Rob Luoma was a drummer who, Rob and I became fast friends after that, and Rob was the best man at my wedding to Donna. So that was kind of cool. And Dave Downing was the bass player, Jim Miller on guitar. That was our core OROBOROS at that time. Eventually, Rob left. I think Rob was the first to go. He kind of got tired of it, on the road all the time and stuff, I think. And he left, and we replaced him with Will Douglas. Will,
Who had just left the Janglers.
yeah, who was with the Janglers. He was, he had just left the Janglers, and he played with Carlos after OROBOROS, so you know he kept gigging. Dave Downing, when he left, he was replaced with Scott Swanson, who, I don't know how we found Scott, but it was a godsend. Scott was an amazing bass player. Right in the pocket, really tight, you know. When Mike Bradley left, Mike Rotman came in.
Didn't Eric Meany come in between?
No, Eric was with the Janglers.
Well, Eric played shortly. Oh, he was in Jim Miller Band for a short at the beginning.
He might have been, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, I think he's out in Las Vegas now.
Oh yeah. He became one of the world's top piano bar entertainers. He ended up with a weekly Sunday national TV broadcast in Holland, or the Netherlands, where he lived.
Wow.
Where it was like called Dueling Pianos, but it was like a competition show, And
I didn't know that.
yeah, so he, for a couple of years, he was on national TV there, married some Dutch woman, and he got offered a gig at, I forget what casino he's at out there, but he's been the resident house piano dude for like 20 years. And
Wow.
out of all the musicians I sort of rubbed elbows with, Jason having someone cover a song that, was a #1 country hits up there too, but Eric has probably entertained more people than any of the rest of y'all, but he told me once the Canadians were the best, like piano bar karaoke type people. Yeah. He says those crazy Canucks just throw money at you in Vegas. And
just mentioning the Janglers jogged my memory. I also had a band before OROBOROS. I was in a band called The Freeze.
Okay.
And it was drums, bass, guitar, me on guitar, and a girl singer, it was Jennifer Ivan, and it was a powerhouse kind of group. We used to do Pretenders and stuff like that, and Jen would just belt these songs out. And then she was replaced by Allie Hernan. And Allie was in theater in Cleveland, did Rocky Horror Picture Show and all this stuff. And Frank Perpick joined the group. I don't know if you know Frank. He's a very talented person, and he played guitar and keyboards. So we were kind of more of a 90s kind of song, like U2, The Cure. We would do stuff like that, Sinead O'Connor and stuff. And we did a couple of oddball songs. We did a Van Halen song, so I could go But The Freeze, when we were playing, I knew the Janglers from Dick Leary's guitar studio where I worked earlier, and I knew Jason and John Treadway.
right.
And I said, hey, you guys, why don't you play this gig? I'll get you this gig at the Scoreboard Lounge. It was in Euclid. And he said, oh, sure, we'll open up for you. And I go, no, we're going to open up for you. They said, you guys are going to draw a ton of people, all the university kids that would come,
Yeah.
And they had a big following. We didn't really have a huge following. And I said, we'll open up for you. Sure enough, they brought in a crowd. It was crowded. And so it kind of gave them, I tried to give them a start. Because I thought that, I always loved Jason and John. They were great people. And Sonny, and kind of knew all those guys. And we did some gigs with them with OROBOROS. So of course we did Janglers, OROBOROS things, just like we did with ITAL.
Yeah.
Not ITAL.
First Light.
First Light. First Light.
Right.
So yeah, those were fun gigs. Some of the OROBOROS gigs that we had were the gigs that blew me away were when we played in Nantucket. I loved playing in Nantucket. We'd go there 2 or 3 times out of summer. It was just great. It was like being a paid vacation.
Sure.
Nantucket was phenomenal. I always loved Chicago. I always had a heart, part of my heart. I loved Chicago. It was a great gigs. And the ultimate gig that we played was, of course, we played the Southern Thailand Blues and Jazz Festival. As any OROBOROS fan would know, we're not really blues, we're not really jazz. How do we fit into this? We sent them promo items and everything, and they loved us, and so they hired us. This was all due to Mike Rotman, who had a computer and was on the internet. I didn't even have a computer yet.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the internet. But Mike Rotman, we were driving to a gig and goes, hey guys, I applied for us to play this gig in Thailand. Wouldn't that be fun? And we're all laughing. Yeah, that'd be great. Like it's ever going to happen. It happened. And it was phenomenal. They paid everything. They paid our flights over. They paid our 5-star hotels, all our meals.
It's the best you were ever treated as a musician, I'd venture to say, wasn't it?
It was. I went. Scott Swanson and I got in a tuk-tuk, the cab, and we went to this club. And so let's go out and check this club. So Scott and I went out, and we walked in, and this girl at the door just went like, oh, 1 minute. And she brings the owner out. The owner's dressed in this impeccable suit. He says, he goes, I see you on Star TV. Well, they're showing this Thailand festival on TV, so I'm treated like I'm Keith Richards or one of the Stones. And he goes, if you go up and play a couple songs with the band, he said, you can drink for free all night. And Scotty just looked at him and goes, you don't know this guy. So I did. I got up and played some songs, and they couldn't speak any English, I couldn't speak any Thai. I said, let's do da 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 da, you know, 1-4-5 kind of blues thing. And I just made up words and did a song right there, and it was great. We had fun.
So did you write songs in the other bands?
I did, but nothing really memorable that I can think of. I did a lot of arranging and writing parts for things.
Okay.
Which I did with the OROBOROS. I did a lot of that. You know, I had a couple of my own songs that we did.
Which ones did you write?
I had Arizona Man.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
There was a song called Wi-Fi Lead that we did for a while. It never made it onto the Serpent's Dance CD.
Okay.
The mix got goofed up or something. But Arizona Man made it on there.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was, you know, it was, I love the songs that, you know, Jim and Mike Rotman wrote. I thought they were great tunes, you know. I thought the band had so much potential to get signed. Plus, we were so tight. It was a magical sound.
It sounds like, you know, from what you said before we turned on the camera, there was some definite interest in signing OROBOROS.
Yeah, you know, there were people, Relics and some other people, I think, that were interested in us, and it just didn't happen for reasons. You know, Jim wanted his father to look over everything, and you know, when these people come to you with an offer, you know, it's shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're going to stall them, they're going to go get somebody else, and that's what happened. You know, so it's unfortunate because the band was so good and so talented. I think it would have gone on to do great things.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, seeing a bunch of different Cleveland bands almost get signed, and you know, watching folks come into town to check them out and trying to read these, you know, music power brokers' faces and everything. It is a make it or break it situation, you know. And
yeah, and that whole business has really changed a lot. Now, a lot of self-promotion is going on now. Of course, you got you know, people like Taylor Swift that are selling millions and millions of records, and they're successful. And there's still people selling millions of records that are successful. But for an up-and-coming band, it's really hard to get in there, get your foot in the door. You got to tour a lot constantly. You have to tour to make any money to promote yourselves. You know, and I'm friends with a lot of people that are flying under the radar, but they're super talented. There's a guy named Cruz Contreras who had a band called the Black Lilies.
Sure.
Phenomenal band. And Cruz is now touring by himself. He's doing a single thing, and I think he tours sometimes with his wife singing. And but you know, he's flying under the radar, and this guy is so talented. You know, it just kind of makes me think, geez, if he can't get signed, you know.
The business has changed not only from, you know, the difference between physical product and streaming and downloading, but even just the live music scene. You know, I mean, I know you're in Pittsburgh now, but Cleveland's turned into a cover band dominated live music scene, and the few original places, I mean, there's not a lot of big money generation things going on like there were in the First Light, OROBOROS, Janglers scene. And you know, I mean, there was
very true.
It was so much more healthy and nurturing. And is Pittsburgh like that as well? That there's not a huge
Pittsburgh has an interesting scene in a way. There's some old people that have been playing for years that are, you know, they're like Joe Krashecki,
sure,
you know, the House Rockers.
Sure.
There's people like that. I don't go out a lot to hear bands,
right?
You know, but there's a little place called the Club Cafe, and they bring in some, you know, bands. But in Pittsburgh, I'm not really that familiar with the music scene. When we moved to Pittsburgh, my wife said, you should get together and form a band here with some musicians. At that time, I was playing in Dream Circuit, so I'd come back to Cleveland
For the gigs.
to get the gigs. And the only gigs we used to play pretty much, we played the Euclid Tavern, I think once, in
Cafe.
Hessler Street Fair, which was cool, you know.
Yeah.
But we played at the Barking Spider a lot. And of course, Dream Circuit was basically OROBOROS.
Without Jim.
Well, it was like, you know,
Right.
Rob was playing drums, Mike Bradley was playing keyboards, Billy Cogan, Billy Cogan on guitar, me and Dave Downey was on bass.
Right.
So it was basically a OROBOROS, and it was a damn good band. It's a really good band. And when the Spider closed, we haven't played a gig since the Spider closed. I said to the guys, if you want to book gigs at a bars in Cleveland, let me know. Just let me know, and I'll make sure I put on my schedule and I can make these shows.
Yeah.
You know, nobody ever booked any gigs, so Dream Circuit never played another show. And the sad thing is the last show we played, I would practice so hard because we'd only play 4 shows a year. And I practiced so hard and I said, send me some tapes, a couple, I couldn't make a couple of rehearsals. So I'm practicing to the tapes they made for me of new songs that I had never played. And I said, don't worry, I'll be able to play them at the gig, you know. The last show we played, I think, was the best I ever played guitar, ever. Larry Koval was there. And I said, Larry, I can't do anything wrong. I can't hit a wrong note if I wanted to. I said, everything's falling into place, everything sounds so great. So it's kind of sad for me that was it. It was the last gig.
What year was that?
Oh, 4 years ago maybe?
Okay.
5 years ago, the Spider closed.
Okay.
Which was like, I love that place.
Yeah.
I've never seen another bar like that anywhere.
Anywhere in
on all my travels.
And just the guy going around collecting money for the band, you know, and
Yeah.
that whole rap. I mean, that culture was just so unique for anywhere, but it almost reeks of old-timey hootenanny.
Yeah.
You know, the way we might end up after the grid goes down and every society collapses and
Yeah.
we have the big analog reset.
Yeah.
That's my hope and dream for society, is that we have the analog reset to
Yeah.
get us out of all this digital fake concentration on the wrong stuff. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, that's why a lot of people are going back to vinyl records, because they say, I just like the way that sounds. I don't want the CD because it's too digitized, you know.
and that's I'm meaning more like junk like reading and like
Yeah.
writing and the culture. You know,
Books.
people
We're in the
like
library, books.
around my age and older, you know, maybe a few years younger than me. I'm 60 right now. We all got raised the same way. Essentially, our great grandparents got raised,
Yeah.
and then, first television kind of skewered it open. But once the computer hit, you know, and internet really,
Yeah.
you know, that's the divide of culture, and it's analog versus digital. And I mean, the stuff kids and people just don't do compared to what we had done and developed for so many generations is lost, you know. And so when you think about why is there not a great supportive live music scene for original bands anymore? Oh, I don't need to do that. I'll just download it. I'm gonna do it and get it on Discord
Exactly.
while I'm playing my video games. And well, why would I go to a bar? You know. And sorry, Kenny, I am imitating you, my son. I mean, straight out of his mouth, you know. And he impressed me though. He moved out for the second time. He impressed me because he actually went and saw live music in a bar.
Yeah.
25, you know.
Yeah.
Shoot. We used to go get fake ID so we could go and see.
Yeah, Agora.
Yeah.
That was a big place. You know, back in the late '60s, early '70s, The original Agora, I don't know if you know.
I never got into. I wasn't old enough.
The original Agora was in Little Italy.
Oh, that original
little
one.
building,
Yeah.
which was where Midwest Sound was located. That we got our PA from, and then when Midwest Sound moved out, Goose Acres moved in there. But that was the original Agora.
That I didn't know it was that building.
Yeah.
I've been in there in the Goose Acres.
Can you imagine?
Wow. I never even went to the second Agora. The one before the Metropolitan.
Yeah, we played it. I remember we did some gigs with OROBOROS at the new Agora.
Yeah.
Or
Metropolitan.
The old,
The WHK auditorium.
Yeah, WHK Auditorium or something.
So what was the best concert you ever went to in Cleveland? What show blew your mind, or person, or best concert memory kind of thing?
Yeah, it's hard to say because at one time I used to go to a lot of concerts. My very first concert was Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Wow.
Which was
The one with the monkeys, or?
no, the sound. Oh God, what's their name? I can't think of the name of the group that opened for him, but they were loud as hell too. They're as loud as Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Larry Koval went to that show with me, and my good friend of mine, Frank Fleck. We all went to see Jimi Hendrix. Some of the shows that I recall that were phenomenal that I can remember were some of the James Gang shows at Menor Hullabaloo were just mind-boggling. Glass Harp did some great. Glass Harp opened up for Humble Pie at the John Carroll University gym.
Yeah.
And I liked Humble Pie, but this is now Peter Frampton left Humble Pie, and that's why I was going to see him, because I love Frampton. Not that I against the other guitar player that replaced him, but it wasn't the same. But Glass Harp opened up, and Phil Keaggy, in my mind, just blew everybody off the stage that day. So that was a great show. Some of the biggies that I used to go see, I was a big Zepp fan.
Okay.
Back when I lived in Cleveland, I even traveled to Pittsburgh to see Led Zeppelin play at the old Three Rivers Stadium, or whatever it was called. Yeah. So I saw them several times. I also saw a group that I thought was phenomenal, was Yes. It's a prog rock, but I thought they were great. Anything that had to do with Prince was phenomenal. Just the groove thing is just unbelievable. Fleetwood Mac, I saw with the Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks version.
Sure.
They were magical. It was just,
World Series of Rock, or at the Coliseum? Or?
It was at the Coliseum, the Nashville Coliseum. They were so good. It was just mesmerizing. I thought their sound was really good. Van Halen was mind-blowing.
At the Palace?
They were so good. No, I saw them at the Richfield Coliseum.
Okay.
And it was just, because you looked around and I said, God, they must be making a lot of money. Every other person had a Van Halen t-shirt on. They bought the t-shirt and put it on, at the show. And I remember when they did Panama, in the beginning of Panama, it was that dang, 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 the crowd would, it was like 20,000 people screaming their heads off. And Eddie Van Halen was just a phenomenal guitar player. And it was mind-blowing to me. It was just, it was so good. I didn't think it was going to be like that good. They were talented. And after we do this, I'm going to think about it later. I'm going, oh, I should have mentioned this. Oh, I should have mentioned that. But I saw so many shows and so many concerts, it's hard to remember which ones were your favorites,
Right.
What
was your musical starting point? Is it going to be like everyone else's?
Well, when I started, I was doing soul music.
So you didn't start the Beatles being on Ed Sullivan isn't what ignited the spark?
Oh, I did see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I did think that was cool. I actually, at that time, wanted to be like the Dave Clark Five, that drummer, Dave Clark, why do you love me?
Because it was more rock and roll?
No, I like their style of music. I love the Beatles song. Of course, I was always a Beatle fan.
Right.
Still am.
Right, sure.
Dave Clark Five too. there was a lot of the power pop bands that I really respected. Paul Revere and the Raiders with Mark Lindsay. I just thought they were so talented, those power pop bands. And then I just fell into this thing with soul music with Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, all those records, the Temptations' greatest hits. And I really got into the soul thing. And that's what the Chancellors played. We had a horn section and everything, and we did a lot of that kind of music. And then we started getting a little more psychedelic with the Sly and the Family Stone stuff came out.
Yeah. And
I thought that was fun. I just loved playing Sly songs. It's so cool. We did some crazy arrangements. We had so many vocalists that were good singers that we did a 5-part barbershop quartet of I Want a Girl Just Like the Girl That Married Dear Old Dad. And we did this, and then we segued into Dance to the Music. It was so much fun, people would just go, whoa, what is that? But the bands that I really respect, the Charades, the Buddy Maver bands, the Charades, Rainbow Canyon, the Raspberries.
Yeah.
These bands were phenomenal talents. The Raspberries were phenomenal. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that at the time. Michael Stanley Band, I always thought had great songs. I thought he was talented. It was kind of funny how Clevelanders, either you loved them or hated them.
Right.
It was like that song he had, It's my time, love it, hate it, it don't matter, So it was sad to see him pass.
I think that ripped the hearts out of a lot of people that still had the hometown hope and feeling, and it's just seeing the struggles of his legacy afterwards, and it's he still means a lot to a bunch of people, and there's dueling Michael Stanley tribute acts going on and stuff. So
I met him a couple of times, and he was such a straight up nice guy. I think he was pretty clean. I don't think he ever did any drugs or
he seemed that way.
He seemed pretty stable, in that sense, and down to earth. I thought he was a very nice guy when I met him. In fact, when we did these shows in OROBOROS, we would do these shows with big name people. I'd meet these people, and they were so fun to talk to. I'm in a restroom, and this guy comes up the latrine 2 away from me, and it's Warren Zevon.
Was OROBOROS open for Zevon?
We played on a tour. We played a Horde tour. And there was all these different acts on it. And then we also did a thing with the Dead, but it was the Dead after Jerry died.
Right.
But it was all these other bands too. The Allman Brothers. We did the show on Horde tour with the Allman Brothers, and they came on the Shooters.
And sure.
You got that on SoundCloud.
Yeah,
I heard that thing, and that was a cool experience playing that, and we played.
How'd Zevon happen though? I don't, that crossing of the paths I didn't recall happening.
He was, at that point, when I met him, I was talking to him in the restroom, at that point he was clean.
Yeah.
He used to be a lunatic, drinking and drugs, and I guess what I hear.
Yeah.
He used to be pretty crazy. And when I saw him, he was clean, and he was a really nice guy.
But Robbers didn't play the same gig as him, and you were just at the same show? Or?
We were on the bill with him.
I see.
We got sandwiched between 2 phenomenal acts, and I'm thinking, what are we doing? But Hot Tuna played, Hot Tuna,
sure.
Yorma, and then we went on, after us, Los Lobos came out.
Oh my goodness.
And it's cool because Hidalgo, he goes, hey, damn good show. He looked at me, so it was kind of cool,
Absolutely. And for them, you're just musicians. They don't know that you're, a Cleveland band that, or a regional band or whatever. I think the fraternity of musician is, can you play, and are you playing with your heart, and giving it to people, you know, and there's no denying any of that with music, you know.
Yeah, because you know Mike Rodman's still doing a thing with Big Ship.
Yeah.
And he does solo gigs.
Rob plays with Alan Green.
Rob's, you know, I'm with Alan Green band. To me, the best blues guitarist, bar none in Cleveland, Alan Green is just one of a kind.
I agree.
I was friends with Alan way before Rob. I told Rob, I said, I met Alan when he was in a band called Orville Normal and played at the Hungry Eye. I heard this guy playing guitar, and I said, wow, you're really tasteful. Then he was playing with Jimmy Lake Coosa River Band in The Mistake. And he was just blowing my mind. He was like so good. And I'd ask him, well, how do you get that sound? He would take time to say, you know, most people go on a break, they're like, yeah, I don't want to talk about equipment. He was explaining everything, how he preamps through this little amp going into the Marshall, and you know, he was explaining everything to me. So I knew Alan for years, you know, back from '72, you know.
You're the second person that's brought up Orville band.
Yeah.
I am struggling to pull it out of my craw who the other one was, but might have been Butch.
Butch Armstrong?
Yeah. And I'm fascinated by all the teen clubs and like the church places where you could play. And
well, those clubs, when we played with the Chancellors, we played those clubs, they were packed. It wasn't just like a few kids in there. These places were packed. And of course, we weren't, you know, Chancellors was more of a Motown band, and we never tried, I never even tried to book us in the Manor Hullabaloo, because every time I went to Manor Hullabaloo, some phenomenal band playing there,
right,
you know,
right.
On tour, you know. So I saw a lot of cool acts coming through there, you know. Bob Seger was really cool there.
Was that with the Bob Seger's, you know, Herd?
Bob Seger's system.
Okay.
Yeah, when he was doing heavy music and you can call me Lucifer, you know, that was that era. He was really a cool act, I thought. So I was happy when I saw him get successful. I thought, that's great, man. He deserves it.
Yeah,
a hard-working guy, you know.
Did you ever go to the Chagrin Armory?
No, never did.
Okay. That was where a couple of folks were talking about seeing Glenn and the James Gang turn into Joe and the James Gang.
Yeah.
And then there was some club on the corner of Brook Park and Chevrolet Boulevard in an old giant tire warehouse.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it.
Club what or something like that, or
yeah, some kind of
obscure weird name.
Yeah.
And Butch talked about how you know, they had been seeing James Gang with Glenn at the Armory and at like the Hullabaloos and stuff, and he skipped one week. And when he went to school at Orange the next day, you know, one day, they were like, man, you should have gone, you know, there's some new guy in the band, Glenn's gone, and so they went to go see him at that club on the west side, you know, Club What or whatever it was, and everyone's like, he's not Glenn, we're going home, and Butch said, my mind was just blown. You know, seeing someone as good as Glenn, but different than Glenn, you know,
yeah.
You know, so you guys that are just slightly older than me, I've always wanted to be in your age group, you know, because you saw the golden era of
experiences.
Yeah.
My cousin Nick Verbic was actually a really amazing guitar player in Chicago, and he's, you know, and I said, Nick, how do you do that? How do you do that? He was, when I first started playing guitar, I was playing really simple stuff like, you know, like This Could Be the Last Time by the Rolling Stones. I tried to do We Ain't Got Nothing Yet by the Blues Magoos.
Sure.
Because I thought that was a cool lead. I go do and follow the pattern. You know, I learned how to do that, and I thought, oh, I can play lead guitar now. But he told me about Glenn. He said, you got to go see Glenn. And then, you know, I was talking to Nick later on. He goes, well, Glenn found religion, so he's a little changed now.
Yeah.
He went out west to be with Pacific Gas and Electric. I had seen Glenn play in Cleveland a few times, you know, with his brother Gene, and you know, I saw him several times, and it was, the performances varied from incredible to yeah.
and they were long, and even within the same performance, there'd be like an hour of noodling or, you know, nothing happening.
Yeah.
And then
Or preaching.
Yeah, and what would set him on fire, though, would be having to preach and having to use his guitar as his real ultimate weapon, because he couldn't get it through with his words. He'd get in these arguments with the people, and I mean, that was half the appeal. You'd go there to see the train wreck and see just some smoldering blues guitar, but to me, he always seemed to be able to dish it after he'd either, you know, lost or won a spat with an audience member calling them out for smoking or drinking or showing their cleavage or whatever. You know?
And then you had the other blues guy, Robert Jr. Lockwood, who I always thought, I used to call him Robert Jr.
Right.
Some people call him Robert Lockwood Jr.
Yeah.
But I used to call him Robert Jr. Lockwood.
In Cleveland, what I found out is in Cleveland he's known more as Robert Jr.
Yeah.
But in Chicago he was more like Robert Lockwood Jr. And like when you look on Discogs at his official releases and all, they were initially Robert Lockwood Jr. And then when he had the mid-'80s, when he lived in Cleveland and started putting out records again, then it was Robert Jr. Lockwood. You know?
He's an interesting guy. I talked to him a couple of times, not at gigs, but out in a store somewhere. You know, I'd run into him, and he'd say, "These young players," he'd get mad. He goes, "These young players all gotta play so loud and play so fast." He goes, "I don't understand that." You know, so he really didn't have a lot of respect for some of the blues players that he invited to come up and jam with him, and then he'd say they're too loud and trying to play too many notes.
Yeah.
You probably see Robert play. He's old school blues. I mean, it's phenomenal.
How lucky are we?
I know.
To be one step away from Robert Johnson.
Yeah, really.
You know, I mean, that's as close as we could ever get. You know, and
there was a documentary film that I think it was financed by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
About Robert Jr. Lockwood. I don't know whatever happened to that, but it was.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I recall.
It was good. It was done well. Yeah. But from what I'd heard, they had a battle getting Robert to agree to all this stuff. You know.
He was very cantankerous. Like the few times that I lugged equipment out to record him, he wanted to be paid, and so one time. The first time he asked, I was like, I'm not paying to record you, and then I regretted it, and then I went again, and you know, so I have one recording. I think I paid $25 for the right to make, which is the only time that's ever occurred. You know,
he knew so many people that got ripped off over the years, and people would say, Robert, don't let them do this. Robert, don't let people do that. So he was, you know, of course that was a big thing that the Dead broke that kind of mold about taping. You know, you go to a Dead show and there's a million people taping the show, all these recording, and they didn't care. It's like, go ahead and do that. And you know, for me playing at OROBOROS, I knew a lot of Dead songs, but I didn't know the name of it.
Right.
So it was like Ripple, you know. If I heard the song, go, oh, I know that's the Dead. And I didn't know the song, the title of the song was Ripple. You know, maybe someone would say, yeah, it's Ripple, and then I forget, and I never heard it. But I was not sitting around playing Dead songs when I got hired for OROBOROS. In fact, I was more of a rock player, funk player. But I loved it, you know, when I started listening to this stuff. I'm like, wow, this is great. I've always been a fan of the Dead. I was a fan when they first came out.
Did you see them prior to joining OROBOROS ever?
Never. I never saw the Dead.
Ever?
I heard them in parking lots.
Sure.
I went to a couple of people that said, come on, we're going to go party in the lot, you know. And we'd go around, you know, there'd be vendors selling brownies and stuff. We'd do grilled cheese sandwiches or what have you. And I'd hear them playing from outside. But I never went in to hear a Dead show. Yeah. Now, the other Dead now, the Dead that's touring now, I'm pretty familiar with those. I'm also familiar with the Owsley Stanley Foundation. And I'm friends with a couple of people running the Owsley Stanley Foundation, and they're doing phenomenal things.
Archiving his recordings.
With
yeah.
recordings, and they're giving the money to the artists. They're not like saying, "Oh, here's 1% of the thing." They're not doing that. I mean, Owsley Stanley Foundation is straight up. They're fantastic. You know, and I tell anybody that's a Dead fan, you gotta Google Owsley Stanley Foundation. They have several recordings out now.
I just saw they're putting out so whoever opened for Old and In the Way, Old and In the Way, the Jerry Bluegrass project, and it blew me away. And struggling to pull out what band it was. Oh, the Chieftains.
Yeah, the Chieftains.
Boy, the Chieftains opened for Old and In the Way that day. What that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I love everything about Old and In the Way, but the fact that in '73 you got the Chieftains opening for you, my God.
I was a huge fan. I still am of Peter Rowan.
Sure.
He was phenomenal, just a phenomenal person, singer and songwriter, and there's some cool things they do. I got the first recording that they actually put out, Owsley Stanley Foundation, was Merle and Doc Watson. It's like 4 CDs or something set, and it's phenomenal. But there are a couple of repeats. There's a cut from cut from the one night that you recorded.
Yeah.
Here's the same cut from another night, but they're not identical. If you listen to them side by side, they're totally different. But that was Doc, who was an incredible bluegrass player.
Yeah.
And Merle too. I mean, it was just phenomenal what they were doing. I've been down to Merle Fest, phenomenal festival.
I'd love to go to that. I turned on to bluegrass for my Deadhead friends in the '80s. I'd go out to the Waterloo Village Bluegrass Festival in Stanhope, New Jersey each year.
Wow.
And we'd see Bill Monroe and the Stanley Brothers and the Clan, Little Jimmy, I forget Little Jimmy's last name, but I mean, old school people. Peter Rowan would play it, and I mean, I got to see all the huge people of bluegrass, and thank goodness I did. And but I love Peter Rowan's story about getting kicked out of the Bluegrass Boys, and Bill Monroe saying, "You're too good to be in my band anymore," And you think about that, he was the factory of so much of American music.
Yeah.
And
I just thought of another concert. Remember that you said, what concerts do you remember?
Yeah.
The Gypsy Kings. Oh my God. Just fantastic. A big family, You know how that band started? There's a family that they were known for their singing. There's another family that was known for their playing guitars. And they formed together to form the Gypsy Kings.
I never knew that.
So now you got the singers and the players, and together, the top of both things. That's how that band
was it done off of a marriage or off?
Yeah, it's like a merge. They just said, "Hey, why don't we play together?"
Man, that'd be hard to probably control ego-wise.
Yeah, I often wondered about that. Who gets a couple of people are the lead players, and a couple of people are the singers.
Yeah. It's like drummers, like this whole Taylor Hawkins tribute concert stuff kind of blew my mind. Because I'm thinking, well, one, I knew his name, but I didn't ever think he had that much impact. When I'm thinking, man, oh man, out of all the people that were singer-songwriters that have passed away, and we have all this adulation for a drummer. I mean, my gosh, what's going to happen when Dave Grohl dies?
Did you ever see Taylor play?
Just on videos, yeah.
I made Rob come with me, so we went to go see the Foo Fighters, and I said, "I'm coming here because you're going to love this drummer." I said, "That's why we're going to see the Foo Fighters." And we went to go see it, that one big place downtown that has a big open tent kind of place. I forgot which one it was.
Oh, Nautica?
No, it was the other place that used to be open. I think it was down in the flats. Not Nautica, but another place. But anyways, we were both, Rob and I were both blown away by this drummer.
Right.
It was a phenomenal drummer. I mean, he was up there with the, I saw Rush with Neil Peart, who was an incredible drummer. Of course, Ginger Baker was insane with Cream. But
you put him up in that category?
yeah,
Wow.
he was just a machine. He was so good. I always loved the Police, the drummers.
Stuart Copeland.
Copeland, just in a class by themselves, just they got their own style, they got their own approach, dynamically, they're magical, in many ways. It's amazing, it's just so much talent, it's like, wow. So it's kind of funny, a lot of other musicians knew he was like that good.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm like, what's all the adulation over, I was surprised that they did that, but I was happy they did. But I was kind of surprised that they did that.
The Chains Gang at least got a big bump out of that happening.
Yeah, there's people that there's people that toured that I never saw that I regret it. Janis Joplin at Public Hall, I miss that.
Yeah.
David Bowie shows were other shows that were phenomenal that stuck with me. I was such a huge Bowie fan.
So were you at those 72 shows or?
Yep, I went to every one.
Wow.
I went to the music hall, and then he did back-to-back Public Hall shows.
Right.
And then he'd come back again. I never miss a show. I saw all these. David Bowie was phenomenal. Those were the days.
Yeah.
Music hall and.
Seeing shows in the music hall was just so great,
I saw the last big show I saw there was Guns N' Roses, one of the original Guns N' Roses with all original players.
Yeah.
And boy, they were crazy. I mean, I was just thinking, that must have been like nuts out in LA, trying to survive in the LA music scene where you had to pay to play.
Yeah.
You had to, I mean, when we were in OROBOROS and I was in Coco and I was in Bootleg, the Freeze, we never had to pay to play.
There's clubs doing that in Cleveland now, in like the metal and the punk edge of things, or I forget what the name of it, but some bar like Lakewood area, or it might be in Cleveland, but on that edge, is people bitching about it in the Cleveland Industry Music Group site about why are we turning into pay to play like LA, and my God, it goes right to what we were talking about before. There used to be so much money in it for local bands because people would go out to see bands playing their own stuff, and sure, everyone had to pad it with covers, to cover 3 hours worth of music.
Yeah.
A few didn't, but very few, but it sure is a different environment, and
and a lot of the real modern stuff that's on the radio and the hits, I'm not that intrigued with it, I should say. I know a lot of people are Taylor Swift haters. I think she's a phenomenal talent. She's got a lot of good songs,
my only thing is sonically, it's never reached me. I respect her.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge what you're saying is true, but none of her art's ever impacted me, so I never find myself wanting to listen to it.
I don't have a CD. I don't have one of her CDs, but if I've heard a song, there's a couple of good songs she's had. I'll listen. That's Taylor Swift, but I'm not a giant Taylor Swift. That name came up because she's one of the biggest record sellers. A lot of these other people, I'm not familiar with it. I can't sing along with it. I don't know. I know when rap first came out, a lot of my rock and roll friends said, "This is terrible." And at the time, I was working at a gas station as a service manager in Warrensville and Harvard. 90% of my clientele were blacks, and so we'd play the black stations in the station, and that's when that Rapper's Delight came out. With the chicken taste just like wood. And when that song would come up, I'd crank it up. I'd go, "This song is so cool," And I know a lot of my friends said, "That rap stuff, that's gonna go away." I go, "No, it's not. It's gonna be here, man. It's here to stay."
Sure is. So you must be a Whitmore's Barbecue fan if you worked at that intersection.
Well, I knew what Whitmore's was. That was over in Harvard, I think, on Harvard.
Oh, where was? Didn't you just say?
Oh, that was at Warrensville in Harvard. We were right down the street from the racetrack.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, there was, you know, that's when the whole rap thing started. And there's some of the rapper songs that I think are kind of cool. Some of, you know, I really get a kick out of Snoop Dogg. He's just, you know, I just look at him and I just start smiling. You know? It's like, it's the Snoop, you know.
He's always been witty and sly. You know, and I love him with Martha Stewart. You know, that's the weirdest, most wonderful pairing of, I think, modern day media.
I know. It's like, whoa, what's that?
I mean, I always knew she had a little edge to her. I never thought I'd go down the Snoop Dogg path. You know?
Yeah. Must have been their time in prison. She said, "Yeah, I can get along with anybody."
You know, I bet you that was her big reset of life. You know,
Yeah,
I always enjoyed her. You know,
me too.
I liked her. She was smart, savvy. You know, classy woman without being looking down your nose at people. I never got that off of her.
She's creative. You know, I've always said, gee, you know, I've had so many friends or something that says, oh, I'm doing this now and I'm doing that now and this, you know, my buddy's wife. And I said, oh, you're going to get all Martha Stewart on us now. And she goes, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Which it was, you know, I wasn't like making fun of her, but it's the creativeness that Martha does. And we miss a lot of that in music today, I think, in the new stuff that's playing on the radio.
I think being able to create without having to learn how to play is a different learning curve and reward system than the old way. You know, if you can mess with it on a computer and kind of fake your way through, it becomes more a constructive thing than something emanating out of your soul, your body. And you know, when you have to move your fingers because your brain's and whatever energy controls your brain or what makes you all work, you know, it's different than programming and then singing along to this track. You know,
there's you know, there's people that do, you know, solo shows. You know, like, I always admired Joni Mitchell on a big level. She was one of my favorites always, and I never saw her live. It was a concert I missed. Locally, there's this Alex Bevan, who is just, you know, I've met Alex and I said, I could never do what you're doing. I could never play for 3 hours, me singing, me playing guitar, just me. You know, I was always an ensemble player. I'll play with these guys. And, you know, he just has this charisma, you know, and this, he does this thing with this looper. So it sounds like two guitar players playing. And he's really good. I don't know if you've seen him lately. He's a hoot.
Yeah, I've not seen him in probably like since the Mr. Stress benefit show was the last time I saw him.
Yeah, the Mr. Stress benefit show, I couldn't make it in for that, and I feel bad because I was friends with him. I liked him. He thought he was cool. You know, he was a cool guy. I used to go sit in this trailer with him. You know, we do various things.
Did you? You never played it with Stress Band?
No.
Any of your music? You know, I look at him as Cleveland's John Mayall. And so you've got 8 zillion bands connected to the Stress family tree. Yeah. So what's the shortest path from Mike Verbic to the Mr. Stress family tree? Who did you play with that played in the Stress Band?
Nobody. I can't think of anybody that played Stress.
Who'd you play with that played with someone that played in the Stress Band?
Not really. I don't think so.
None? Okay.
I don't think so. The Generators were a great band.
Oh yeah, big time.
Generators. I was a huge fan of them. They're, you know, and of course they've done a couple reunion gigs, and I never made it in for them. I was like, oh, I want to really go, and I couldn't due to whatever situation I had going at the time. But yeah, Stress was they were a unique band, and they played at, you know, the tavern along with the OROBOROS. You know,
Yeah.
it was like the mainstays there. They had all kinds of nicknames for us at the Euclid Tavern. You know, Bobby. You know,
Yeah.
he'd say, "Oh, you bore us."
Oh, how you bore us.
Yeah. "Oh, you bore us." "Old rubber hose." You know, all kinds of nicknames.
I love the tavern. That's my favorite bar room, you know, base.
Yeah.
And the second would be the cafe, but the tavern just was perfect for me. And
It was a cool bar. Its acoustics were great. The way it was, the way they had it set up.
originally, I couldn't. The few times I went in after the Happy Dog ruined it, it was like,
Yeah.
oh man, it sounds like shit. It's not the same vibe, you know.
Yeah, they spent, you know, the people before Happy Dog spent millions of dollars remodeling it and everything.
Oh, was there someone in between?
Yeah, there was a family that owned a construction company,
Okay.
and I knew the one guy. I grew up with the one guy, and they're all nice people. You know, to me, the nice people. They didn't understand how to run a bar.
Oh.
They didn't understand how to treat musicians, how to pay musicians. They didn't understand that. So it was bad, you know, it was a bad thing. A lot of musicians got turned off because of that.
Yeah.
They had money to fix it up and everything, but they, you know, it's one of those things.
Well, sorry, Happy Dog. I thought you guys messed it up. It was this bad family. Well, Mike, thank you very much for devoting some of your come to Cleveland for a wedding time to talk with me. And
Yeah, it's a great wedding.
well, that's good.
Madeline and Christopher.
Congratulations. Let's hope it worked better than mine. Thank you for watching Cleveland Live Music. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. There's further patronage information in the video descriptions below. Thanks for all the support and making the channel grow.